and welcome. I'm Ellen, the video producer on Games Radar, and I am joined today by the wonderful Leon, the Games Radar Guides Coordinator. And today we're going to be talking about Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. It's a mouthful. Specifically the single player, because that is what you, Leon, got to check out earlier in the week. We're going to talk about the story, some missions, some characters, some character customization, and a whole lot more. So let's jump straight in. We'll start talking about where it's set, and not geographically, but chronologically in the scale of the whole Black Ops series. Where does this game take place?
Yeah, so it's a narrative sequel to the first game, like a direct sequel basically. Black Ops 2 went to, I think, 1986, 1989 and 20,025. Black Ops 3 went to 2065. This is kind of happening before any of that basically. So it's set in 1981. Essentially, this carries on after the first Black Ops. David Goyer's back, so he was obviously Batman Begins, the scriptwriter that was involved in the first two games. That was a big deal at the time, so it's kind of a big deal that they've got him back. But essentially, yeah, this is almost like Black Ops 2 and 3 didn't exist. It's a sequel to the first game, so it's kind of Black Ops 1.5?
Question mark? So you get to play as a fully customizable character. I don't want to reflect too much, but this is one of the things I'm most excited about. But what are some of the things that you can actually customize that you've seen?
Yep, so it's interesting. So you play as a character as like codename Bell. You'll see in the trailer, and they're shouting Bell a lot. So that's you essentially. But you can make your character anything you want. So you can customize the name, the skin tone, the gender. And the way that works is you can choose to be male or female, or you can classify the gender. The way you do your character creation is you have like a classified document. So one of those kind of old documents you see with loads of black lines crossing things out, and you can sort of uncover and cover things to make your character. So if you choose to classify your gender, that makes the character gender neutral, and it will change all the VO and all the in-game stuff. So depending on what you pick, your character will be referred to as he, she, they, them, her, him. So it does that in a kind of a really interesting way. You can also choose basically your background, military background, where you were born. So you can be CIA, you can be MI6, you can be KGB. And all of that kind of stuff doesn't really change anything at all, apart from the gender neutral pronouns. It's simply there to let you be the character. When Raven were presenting the game, they really were hot on this idea of like making you feel as much like you were in the game as possible. Yeah,
it's nice that you can customize the gender and it changes the voice, because sometimes in games where you can customize the character, it's like, oh, you're just going to be silent for the entire game. And you can choose the psychological profile, I'm doing little air quotes on that, of the character, but what does that actually mean?
So it's basically a kind of it's like just this one little bit of the form. So you can choose things like paranoid, violent tendencies, lone wolf. It's like a psych evaluation of your character, but what it actually does is it gives you a kind of essentially like a multiplayer perk in the game. There's 15 of them, but I only saw a few. So things like if you choose paranoid, your aim down sight speed will be quicker. If you choose violent tendencies, you'll have more bullet damage. Lone wolf will let you sprint for longer. Professional gives you full movement speed in ADS aim down sights position. So I'm guessing you'll see a reflection of the multiplayer perks essentially in single player by choosing this psychological profile choice. You can choose nothing at all as well if you wanted.
I like the idea that paranoid gives you better aim down sight. It's an interesting matchup.
It will be interesting as well, because that's the first time they've really let you mess around with the single player. I mean, obviously you could choose operators and stuff before, but there's quite an interesting story-based tweak, I think.
And speaking of story, there's some characters who are returning from previous games. So who is back that you've seen?
So the sort of the main cast of Black Ops 1 and 2 are back. So that's Mason. You know, Mason, what do the numbers mean? We've got Woods and Hudson as well. There's some new characters we'll get to in a moment. We don't know yet, like in the original games you had actors like Ed Harris, Sam Worthington, Michael Keaton, some really big names playing those parts. At the moment all we know is a new voice cast, so I don't know whether that's new equally impressive names or different people. There's one new character that they made a big deal about, saying he's one of the biggest additions to the Black Ops universe, and that's Russell Adler, and he looks like a slightly more badass version of a young Robert Redford. He's got the blonde hair, the sideburns, but he's like this sort of dark kind of, they don't quite know his motivations. He's the kind of get shits done sort of boss who's in charge of it all. There's no sign of Reznov, who's played by Gary Oldman, so we don't know whether he'll appear again. But yeah, like essentially it's like getting the band back together. The original team are back. It's set essentially between Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, so they're kind of where we left them really from the first two games.
Back now, but with more sideburns.
Yes. Oh yeah, some great sideburns, great like old, those really old heavy leather jackets they always wear in old 70s and 80s spy movies. It's got that real like nice 80s kind of cool thing going on.
So I've heard a little bit from you and just heard whisperings that the main campaign has you chasing down a real life Soviet spy. So what do you know about that?
Well, so allegedly real life. There's a real life kind of code name called Perseus, who was allegedly this Russian spy, possibly like a double agent or someone who defected, who was responsible for stealing nuclear secrets from the Manhattan Project, which is the program America had that created the nuclear bomb they dropped in World War II. The name Perseus was also mentioned in something called the Verona Project, which was a United States counterintelligence program that ran from World War II to 1980. So the code name is a very real tag for a spy that may or may not have existed. They're still to this day, they don't really know if he was real. They don't know who he was. There's a few names being thrown around. Some people think he was purely made up just to confuse people and let them chase sort of shadows. But Perseus, as an active counterintelligence code name, was a real sort of entity. Yeah.
You also mentioned multiple paths and, branching narratives, however you want to phrase that. How much did you see of that? Because, that can mean a lot of things. Sometimes it means you can make loads of decisions, but everything's the same. We're just kind of, tricking you a little bit. And sometimes it means you're going to get a completely different experience to the next person. So do you know how much that's going to play out?
There's definitely going to be multiple endings. One of the things I saw was a slide that just had multiple endings on it, on the top. They've kind of hinted at that they won't do it all the time. They said when it's not appropriate for every mission, so it won't happen all the time. But Dan Vondrake, who's the senior creative director at Raven, said that we loved ways to find optional objectives, multiple paths, and a variety of player choice moments. Now, the sort of stuff I saw was at one point you had a guy you'd caught and you're like hanging him over a banister, and you're basically kind of going, tell us what we want and we'll go easy on you, or you're saying, you've picked the wrong people to cross with. So there's dialogue options at that kind of level where you can make simple kind of immediate decisions that will affect sort of the next few minutes. But there's non-linear missions, there's multiple paths, there's multiple objectives. So some levels will be just the normal kind of Call of Duty, gun rush, thrill ride, roller coaster thing, and others will give you, different things to try out, different paths to follow, non-linear kind of stuff. So there's a lot of ways, like creating the character, you can influence how the game unfolds, and you will see, according to Raven, you'll see like the impact of what you decide could happen like in the next few minutes. It could happen a little way down the line, but it will all add up to some kind of change to the ending. They said it won't go mad. It's not going to be like cobweb sort of spider web story points all over the place. There's still a linear story there, but yes, you will affect the ending by how you decide to play it and what you decide to do.
Yeah, it's never going to be like you can see the impacts because it's going to be a lovely happy ending. It's going to be something dark, sure. You also mentioned in your preview, which we will link in the description, I have to just mention that you said Hitman, and my eyes went straight to it. You said that there's going to be new styles of missions, so maybe we should talk about those a little bit.
Yeah, so the two missions they showed off about 4 different kind of separate missions, but 2... They made a point of saying that like they were early ones they pitched at the beginning of development to kind of show that they wanted to, try something that hadn't been done before. So there's the mission in Vietnam and there's a Kgb mission. The Kgb mission is a really interesting one because that's the Hitman one. So you are undercover in the KGB's headquarters in Moscow, which is the Lubyanka building. It's a very famous building. And you have to eliminate this one guy. And you can do it in a number of different ways. So the thing they showed up was you pulled up a map of the building, like the floor plan, and there were different like points on it that offered you different ways to get rid of your target. And there were things like you could poison him, You could blackmail him. You could find a prisoner that he was going to interrogate and I think bribe the prisoner to kill him. I guess you could just kill him yourself, but there were lots of different ways of doing it, and you could basically choose, whatever option you either wanted to do or could do. I'm guessing that some will be harder than others, and maybe things will go wrong, and suddenly you'll be like, I'm going to have to do the other one because I've lost this chance over there. But yeah, so you've got this. It had a real like Hitman vibe of like, here's your garden party or your fashion show or whatever Hitman's sort of set in, and here's your objective. Now do it however you want. And the other one that was really interesting was the Vietnam flashback. So I'm 99% sure that this is being sort of relived through some kind of hypnotic regression, because you can hear a voice telling you to do things, like echoing like from somewhere else. So I think they're being hypnotized to relive Vietnam, because the story, as I've explained it, there's something that happened in Vietnam that is vital to discovering or tracking down Perseus, but they didn't know it at the time. So they're trying to like relive these memories to unearth this clue, which appears to be the Red Door. That was the code name that people might have seen being linked to. But you play this Vietnam mission and you run around, and there's multiple paths, and what they sort of talked about is as you make choices and play it a certain way, new pathways and new options will open up. And they talked about the level resetting, so it sounds like you'll play like a Vietnam sort of mission, a Vietnam attack, and you might decide to do something, and that will suddenly open up some new options, and things will kind of reset or loop, and then you'll get a chance to go through those options instead. They talked about there being lots of secrets, so looking forward to people finding everything in this level, but they said they've never done anything like it. But it does also trigger the kind of the Black Ops hallucination uncertainty thing, because towards the end of the level when they showed it, you could see like the red door, this mythical red door was like dropping out of the sky, and you can hear this voice saying, go through the red door, and every time you try and avoid it, it would appear somewhere else. And as they're going through the jungle, you can see like Russian flags and office dividers and walls appearing in the jungle. So it's clearly not real, not fractured kind of reality. But this sort of resetting, replaying thing is interesting.
Obviously, they've been using the phrase like doing things in a way they haven't done before, trying things they haven't tried before. But when we strip it back, there's still gunfights, there's still car chases. So let's talk about like the classic COD stuff. The things that we keep coming back for. What have you seen of that kind of stuff?
Well, they showed off just some really nice kind of action sequence, basically. The Kgb mission, which starts off with you being undercover and trying to sneak around, ends with a big sort of gunfight to escape. And it just had quite a sort of modern warfare kind of feel to it, because you fight your way out the building, you rush into like this sort of crappy little car, because it's the 1980s and it's Russia, so they haven't got great cars at that point. So it's sort of scrappy old 80s car, and you sort of jump in and drive off, and someone gives chase, and you're firing out the back window in this little narrow alleyway. The car behind you like explodes and like tries to kind of pinwheel and roll over, because the tunnel's so narrow it just kind of topples a few times and then comes to a halt. But it had that nice modern warfare feel of like still exciting, still lots of action, but not like so over the top. In the trailer there's a moment you can see where a plane like kind of rolls over after they've blown it up in a car chase. So there's still big moments, but it has a kind of like slightly more grounded, slightly more realistic kind of feel, following on from Modern Warfare, which kind of reset the tone.
When I was playing Modern Warfare at lunch today, actually, I was comparing it with the back and forth of Black Ops and Modern Warfare. It's like your parents have split up, and it's like you're spending Christmas with your mum, and then your birthday with your dad, and they're kind of trying to one-up each other, but both are a little bit different, and you have to readjust. But it sounds, I don't want to jinx it, but it sounds good. I have high hopes. Hopefully not too high, but
I liked what I saw, and it's interesting that Raven have worked on Call of Duties. I think they've worked on basically every single Call of Duty as a support studio, and I think Black Ops 1 was one of the first ones they ever worked on. But they're a good studio. Raven have, like, if you look into Raven's history, they've made some like stone cold classic games, and it's interesting that they've got their first chance now to do the single player. Treyarch, as far as I can tell, are doing the multiplayer, but essentially this is for the first time since Sledgehammer, which I think was 2013 or 15. It's the first time a new studio's taken on the single player.
So that was everything we know about the Cold War single player. The game itself releases on November 13th, which gives us plenty of time to bring you more info on the game, including gameplay and multiplayer. So subscribe to Games Radar and push the little notification bell so you stay completely up to date with all things gaming, and thanks for watching.